What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. We're going to go over the Lakers Mavericks trade one more time after time has settled a little bit. We've gotten some more information on the entire deal that went down and all that. So if you do enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below. Again, I want to know, where do you see the Mavericks going? How far do you see them going with this new deal? Same thing with the Lakers. So without further ado, let's get into this. So to start off, right? Yesterday, I told you guys I dropped the video. I had freshly seen it literally 30 seconds after I saw it. I hopped off 2K, hopped into my podcast room, and started recording. It's something that now that I've had time to think about, my opinions have kind of switched up just slightly here. I want to give some pros and cons for both sides, right? I've been seeing all over Twitter and all over Instagram and everything like that, that the Mavericks have been getting a lot of hate for this deal. And I'm going to go into the cons of it as well. Don't believe me, I'm not a massive fan of this trade for the Mavericks themselves, but there's a couple pros that can lead to something huge here for the Mavericks. So let's start with them. So actually, yesterday I had talked about Anthony Davis playing the 5, but his time with the Pelicans, he was the best at the power forward position, right? He didn't need to battle bodies as much down low, so that created less injury history and everything like that. He was healthier as a power forward. This year, he's been playing, last season he played a solid amount of games. This year so far, he hasn't missed too much time. So actually, he's showing a relatively healthier timeline in these last, let's say, season and a half at this point, right? So with that, you look at, Dallas has the front court depth to put him at the power forward position. So you're actually looking to bring off the bench a PJ Washington-esque. So you're running a lineup now of like Kyrie, Clay, Spencer Dinwiddie, Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford, something like that, or even Q Grimes or, Max Christie, depending on who they choose to put at that small forward or shooting guard position there. There's a little bit of flexibility there. So this is exactly what Anthony Davis wanted. He went on an interview with Shams, and Shams asked him specifically, what do the Lakers need to fix? And he said, I think that I play my best basketball when I play at the power forward position, and I think we need to go get a center so that I can go play the 4. Now, clearly the response there was the Lakers were like, well, we got this deal here for Luka. We're going to make this deal. You're going to get what you want, AD, and play the 4. We're going to get somebody that can help our future. Now, what the issues that I have with this, and I saved a few things on Instagram that I want to discuss, and it's just a few quotes that the issues of the GM came out and said, I believe that defense wins championships. I believe that getting an all-defensive center and an all-NBA player with a defensive mindset gives us a better chance to win now. So what he's saying, this is GM Nico Harrison, on his motivation to trade Luka. This is just kind of a wild statement. I understand what he's getting at. If Anthony Davis is playing at the Anthony Davis that we all know, then I totally get that. Right. He further on went to say that he wanted somebody that fits their timeline a little better, which was a little concerning to me because you literally made the finals last year with Luka. I understand the injury concerns with the idea of Anthony Davis has had injury history, or Luka even same thing. Right. But why trade if your entire thing is defense and injury history? Why trade for Anthony Davis when, yes, defensively he's phenomenal, but the injury history is there? So you are a banged up roster. You've got Kyrie consistently in and out of lineups, right? You now have AD, who's proven in the past to be in and out of lineups. So that's my biggest issue with this, is something like that, where the GM came out and said, we want to win now, and yet you went to the finals last year. That doesn't really make sense to me. I don't get it. Now, of course, theoretically, if they go and win a championship this year, all that is wiped away. It technically is a win for the trade for the Mavericks. But that's putting so much pressure on winning literally right now. You went and traded one of the best players in basketball currently for a guy who is a phenomenal defender, right? A top 15 player in the NBA, I would say, arguably, in top 10 area, but it's depending on who you ask kind of thing. For the Mavericks, why do you, I can't believe that. And the other idea is, I feel as if, just like I touched on yesterday, that Luka literally had to be like, I want to be a Laker, because let's be honest, right? Paul George went for a plethora of picks when he got traded to the Clippers. Rudy Gobert got traded for a plethora of picks, and assets. That Mikal Bridges got traded for a plethora of picks, right? If you wanted the most to maximize out of Luka, then why didn't you go public with it and say, hey, Luka, we are open to the idea of trading Luka, right? This is when you could have gotten other win now players to help you as well. I understand Anthony Davis is definitely towards the top of that list of probably return that you would have gotten, but who knows what, like I touched on yesterday, who knows what the Miami Heat would have offered for Luka? It could have been Jimmy, Hero, or Bam, and picks. Like, that's what I'm getting at, is the value of Luka Doncic. Look at what KD got traded for. The value of these guys, like, rather than just talking to one team. Now, there's been no reports that Luka has come out and said, I told them I wanted to be traded to the Lakers or anything like that. This so far has been the general manager saying, I want a defensive mindset player. We need to go get that, right? Then you think about, well, we let Derrick Jones Jr. walk in the offseason. Why, if you wanted such a defensive caliber player, did you let him go? I understand he's not the defender Anthony Davis is. They do two totally different things on defense, but it's just like, if you wanted such a defensive caliber squad, you went out and you got older Klay, who's not the same defender he used to be. You still have Kyrie, who's not the same defender that he once was, or he's never been a great defender. It's just perplexing to think about something like that. Now, another issue, Jason Kidd, the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, literally the guy who coaches your entire roster and is game planning for playoffs, game planning for finals runs. You didn't tell him. I'm not saying he needed to know about everything, right? But this deal was so in the dark. That's why everyone was thinking that it was Shams got hacked, because this is just crazy that your head coach doesn't know. Like, you made this deal without discussing things with your head coach. Like, hey, what can you do if we've talked to the Lakers about the idea of getting Anthony Davis? What do you think that will do for us? Right? At least discuss it with the guy. Like, that's what's baffling to me, is like, he doesn't even understand. He doesn't know that his superstar player is out. He's scheming for next game with Luka, and he's out the door. And that's not even, like, that's just crazy to me. The other thing that was funny was I saw the owner, or the GM, Nico Harrison, brought up to the owner the idea of trading Luka, and the owner laughed. If the owner laughs at you, it's probably not a good idea to go trade the guy. That's baffling to me. Why on earth? Like, that's like, I was discussing this with a buddy of mine on the idea of, like, hey, like, how does this relate to, like, NFL terms, right? And Luka right now is like a caliber of a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen-esque. And it's like as if you traded Josh Allen for, let's say, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, right? Somebody like that. Like, you had this guy that was taking you to the playoffs consistently, even when you were a lower seed, and bringing you more. Let's use Joe Burrow as an example, because he made that leap to the Super Bowl. So let's say Joe Burrow gets traded tomorrow for Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's proven that he can do it, but injury history is questioning, right? And then that coach, or then that GM being like, well, we wanted to focus on the run game. That's why we traded one of the best players in football for Christian McCaffrey. That's the level of this, is like, It's baffling to me that this would happen. For the Lakers, right? The Lakers are the only team that the Mavs spoke to. But I do have some pros and cons for the Lakers on this scenario, with the pros being, of course, you get Luka Doncic. You end up being able to sign him to a supermax, right? He, unfortunately, because he's not going to be on the Mavericks this offseason, he won't be able to sign that supermax deal of that 5-year, $345 million deal. Instead, it's going to be $100 million less in the 220 range. 5-year, 220. So that's a huge bummer for Luka himself. But as far as the Lakers go, I mean, you get a generational talent. You went and you got generational talent to put alongside LeBron to make one last finals run, especially since you are a fifth seed. Like, right, they're on the cusp of being like one of those solid, solidified Western teams that can make a push, can make a finals run, right? So they retooled and they said, hey, we understand we need center depth. This is clearly an issue right here. That's why I don't think that the Lakers are going to be done, because they need a center. Right now, your starting center is Jackson Hayes. That can't be a thing. Past Thursday, the trade deadline, there's no way that Jackson Hayes is going to be your starting center moving forward. Unless you run super small and you put like LeBron and Dorian Finney-Smith at the 4 and 5. That, I don't see that happening. But what I will say is, I think that right now this kind of gears up with Austin Reeves. Seems like a very expendable piece in my opinion right here, right? I think that the Lakers could look to get rid of somebody like Austin Reeves so that they go out and they get their center. It's like Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, both of them seem a little expendable to where you could go and talk to the Pacers about Miles Turner. You could go talk to the Bulls about Vucevic. You could go talk to the Suns about Nurkic, right? Jonas Valanciunas is sitting out there on the market too. There's a few centers, even like Portland with Robert Williams, right? Because he's a little bit of a cheaper option than somebody like DeAndre Ayton. You could go talk to them about that, and you might be able to get that deal done without expending both Reeves and Rui Hachimura. Mitchell Robinson is possibly on the trade block as well. Who knows what's up with Nicholas Claxton with Brooklyn? Like, there are a plethora of center options. Toronto Raptors with Jakob Poeltl. Now, you don't need some crazy center because you have LeBron, you have Luka. You need somebody who can set a screen solidly. Somebody probably in this lineup that might be able to stretch the floor a little bit, at least hit a mid-range shot. So that's why a Robert Williams, Jakob Poeltl, Miles Turner would be perfect. Because, hopefully they stay healthy, but you would want somebody to space the floor so Luka and LeBron can kind of do their thing. I even think calling a center, JaVale McGee, get him out of retirement. I mean, shoot, Dwight Howard's on the market, Boogie's on the market. There's plenty of center options here. I just think that you can go ahead and relieve Austin Reeves. He seems like a guy that's next out the door. Now, one last thing before we do get on out of this video, I do want to talk about some of the other teams, right? The domino effect I discussed yesterday in yesterday's video this is like in the West, for example, this is kind of like an oh shit moment. Like, if you're another NBA team, we saw reactions all over Twitter, all over Instagram of the NBA players finding out about this trade. This trade, like, KD and D-Book were like, oh shit, like now we have to play LeBron and Luka together. That's a problem. So you might look at, Phoenix, they might finally go make that move, right? Everyone was kind of waiting there just before the trade deadline to see what's up with Jimmy Butler and to possibly be a facilitator team in that deal. Now, I think that a lot more teams are willing to be like, all right, shoot, we got to get a deal done. We're going to go make this happen. So what was an extremely quiet trade deadline before yesterday, I think is going to ramp up to be something electric. I think we're going to see De'Aaron Fox get moved to somebody like Houston, and they're going to pull the trigger and they're going to go out and just trade, right? Or make that big splash trade and take that, right? Give up Jalen Green or Jabari Smith Jr. because you're going to need to compete against the Lakers, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma, for example, what does this affect for them is, oh, shoot, we got to defend both LeBron and Luka. So we might go out and go get Cam Johnson and be the highest bidder there. And that might help these other teams that are looking to clearly trade away those guys, Jimmy Butler, Cam Johnson. They might be like, well, the price is a little bit up because the demand, everyone's going to be calling the Nets about Cam Johnson. Everyone's going to be calling, the Bulls about Zach LaVine and Vucevic. So you might be able to squeeze an extra first or second round pick in those deals, right? The Warriors, I don't expect the Warriors to be quiet. So going through these teams here, right? Teams that are we'll start at the top. Teams I don't think are going to be quiet. Oklahoma City, I think, will make a move. It could be small, something like that, but they have so many picks. They have so much talent that's not playing, right? They just, Aaron Wiggins came on the court and had a career high. I don't think that was for no reason. I think that they're inflating his trade value and saying, hey, Brooklyn, look at what Aaron Wiggins can do. He just dropped 41 points. This is a good idea. Come grab him. Something like that. Houston, I think that they could be like, hey, Sacramento, let's make a deal, right? You guys know Fox wants out. So let's make a deal centered around a Jalen Green or Jabari Smith Jr. Let's see what we can do here. Memphis probably pushes the brakes. I don't think that they're going to be too heavy on trades just because, if they were, I think it would be somebody like Jimmy Butler, similar to like a Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors situation where it's basically a rental for a year. Denver, they probably should be active, but they probably won't unless they move Michael Porter Jr. I guess Jamal Murray, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Now, of course, coming into this day, I didn't think Luka was going to get traded from the Mavericks, and that happened, so who knows what that means. It's crazy because this could open up an opportunity of all these superstars that aren't necessarily having fantastic seasons, i.e. Joel Embiid, i.e. Paul George, i.e. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, right? You might look in what's up with Toronto since they're able to absorb a lot of cap, bring them in. You might look at Bradley Beal. Those guys are probably more able to move now because everybody, it kind of might cause a panic in the NBA of we've got to now match the Lakers. And I don't want to come onto this podcast and say hey, the Lakers are guaranteed to win the championship or anything, because I don't think that they're necessarily close right now with this current roster if Thursday passes and they don't make another move. I think that center spot would be too much of an issue if they don't make a move, right? But what I think that can happen is they can get scarier. That's the issue, is they can get more dangerous by having those expendable pieces of the Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura sitting there waiting to be traded almost, is what it feels like. I think that is a huge thing that could potentially happen here. Now, let's keep going down this list. So the Lakers obviously made their move. I don't think that they're done. The Clippers are on this list. They made a small move. They went and got Drew Eubanks. Unless they go get Brandon Ingram or something like that, I don't really think that they're going to make a move because I think they're kind of happy with the situation they're at. I think the idea of you went and you just got, you just traded for Drew Eubanks, of course, right? James Harden is having a resurgence year. He's looking like an older version of the Rockets, James Harden. Kawhi, of course, the injury history is such a question mark. And the defense is phenomenal. So I think that they stay put. Minnesota, they should be looking to make a move. Julius Randle, they're open to the idea of trading him. Who they go out and get, that's just a huge question mark. Who wants Julius Randle? It's probably one of those situations where you end up giving more than what you'll be receiving back, because Julius Randle is he plays a certain way and it ain't going to change from what team he goes to, right? He's the kind of guy that he wants to get his and he's not really going to sacrifice for everyone else kind of thing. So I think that they will try and be in trade conversation. Now at the 8 seed Phoenix, they should be looking to make a move. They kind of need to. this trio of D-Book, KD, Beal ain't really working. Yusuf Nurkic is barely even playing now, not even having conversations with the coach. Report came out about that. It's something that's extremely interesting in the sense of you have got to now chase, right? Because you're only 2 games out of the, right? You're the 8th seed right now. You're only 2 games away from falling out of the play-in. The Dallas Mavericks are 9. I don't think they're done. I really think that they are going to make some sort of tweak tool there as well. Probably improve the bench a little bit. But let's be honest here. Even if they go into the playoffs with heavily championship experienced Kyrie, heavily championship experienced Klay Thompson, heavily championship experienced Anthony Davis, right? Then you have your supporting cast of PJ Washington, who's been to a finals now. Daniel Gafford, been to a finals. Derek Lively eventually will be back, right? Q Grimes coming off your bench. That's a solid roster. Spencer Dinwiddie coming off the bench. It's a great supporting cast. And if Anthony Davis emerges back into the superstar caliber player he was back in New Orleans, where he is the main number 1, and you have your solidified 2, 3 options right there with Kyrie and Klay, they might not make another move. It might just be, we just needed to trade Luka, and then we're good. We can move forward. We can just keep playing our game, all that good stuff. Now, moving on next, the Sacramento Kings got to make a deal. I think that I've talked about this many times about the mediocrity you can't continue having in the West, right? Sure, if you were in the East, you can kind of coast, and you make the playoffs, and then then you got to get through the gauntlet of a Boston Celtics, a New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavaliers. Golden State, I think that they'll make a deal also. I think that this is kind of that kick in the butt that they're like, all right, we got to make that big splash. Let's go get Zach LaVine and Vucevic. And then you have Curry, Zach LaVine, Draymond. If you have to include Kuminga in there, I think that they'll include either Kuminga or Pods, but not both. So the other one will then go to your 3. Then you have Draymond and Vucevic. That's a solid lineup. I don't know how your bench depth looks at that point because you're going to have to give up a lot to match the contracts there. But I think that they can make a deal. The San Antonio Spurs, they probably could stay put just because, of course, Vic's so young and so is Stephon Castle. Maybe they move Keldon Johnson. I think it's about time they kind of move off from him. I think that the experiment is kind of over with. Maybe Jeremy Sohan goes also in that deal, something like that. But they might just stay put. I'm not going to say that every single roster is going to make a trade, right? But there's just a lot of enticing deals that could be like the gears are turning for, I feel like, a lot of these general managers where they're like, all right, well, they just traded their best player, so why can't we do the same thing? And if it doesn't happen at this trade deadline, we could have a very valuable offseason as well. This might mark an extremely active, historical active offseason that we're about to see, or trade deadline that we're going to see. Portland probably should make some deals, try and move Jeremy Grant, of course, if you can get off that fat contract. Robert Williams, DeAndre Ayton, Anthony Simons, all those guys should be on the trade block. You got to get them out of there. You got to remove some center play time for your rookie, Donovan Clingan. You got to remove some time, let Scoot Henderson just be ball dominant and just let him go and let him cook. Hopefully he can really showcase why he was the 3rd overall pick. And then, you have Shaedon Sharpe, of course, there. Denny probably will be on that trade block. I would look to move him just because I think that he fits that deep playoff contention team he should be on. Like, he's somebody that like the Cavs could look to and get because they need some wing depth there and a defensive wing at that because you're a little undersized with your guards in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Then you have the Pelicans here. They should be extremely active. I want to see them just clear house. I want to see, like, it's unfortunate DeJounte Murray just had a season-ending injury because I would have liked to see him move on to that next team. Him, Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, clear it. Clear house. You have 12 wins on the season. You're not going to make the play-in. Just go out and just go get picks, acquire picks, fully rebuild, fully retool, all that. Hopefully get Cooper Flagg or an Ace Bailey in the draft, somebody like that. Utah probably not going to make any more moves, right? Maybe you move Colin Sexton. Lauri Markkanen, if he was going to be moved, it would have been in the offseason. Now he can't because he signed his extension, and it puts him, he could be traded technically on the February 7th, but that's after the deadline, of course. So if he is moved, it is in the offseason. Let's go to the East. Let's talk about those, and then we'll get on out of here. Washington, they could make a move to get rid of Jonas Valanciunas. I think Kyle Kuzma got to go as well, especially with him coming forward and saying, hey, I'm ready to bounce, right? Like, I'm ready. I'm just going to get mine. I don't give a damn about these young players, so you got to get him out of there. Charlotte, I personally would get rid of LaMelo. I think the injury history and everything is just, and if I'm LaMelo, I would want to move on too, because they're not really making those moves to make him super successful. Brooklyn, Cam Johnson is your trade piece. He's got to go. He's got to go by Thursday. You just can't keep him on the roster. If you can find a suitor for Cam Thomas as well, great. Nicholas Claxton, I think that he's somebody they should look to move also, but he makes quite a lot of money. Philly is interesting because I am now on the wavelength that they should trade Joel Embiid. I know it's crazy to think about, but because Luka, why aren't you on the same wavelength of like, we want to compete for a championship? This guy has missed more games than he has played in since he's come into the NBA. Homie has missed 400 plus games. I understand injury, but at some point you just got to say, screw it, and we're going to move on because the process ain't processing nothing. Chicago here, they got to find a suitor for Zach LaVine and Vucevic. I think that's huge. Of course, if you can get rid of Kobe White, I think you move on from him as well, just because his value might be a little higher. You also have too many guards. You got Josh Giddey, you got Kobe, you have Ayo DeSumo as well. You're just going to want to look to be bad. The Sixers are probably going to start moving up if Embiid can get healthy, if Paul George can start playing better. So then you guys can swap spots. They become the 10th seed. You guys become the 11th seed. Atlanta, they could look to retool a little bit. Jalen Johnson's injury, of course, puts a kind of a break on the operation, unfortunately. Maybe you move off of Clint Capella. He's only got a year left on his deal anyways. Something like that. Yeah, it's kind of a smaller deal like that, but because of Jalen Johnson's injury, it's just push the brakes. It's not going to be a super successful season this season in the playoffs. Orlando should go get a score. It's almost like it's 2025. Teams are scoring 115 plus a game. You got to be scoring at least 100 points. It's like, how are you ending games 88, 89? Like, you got to go get a score. Go get Colin Sexton. Go get De'Aaron Fox. Go get a scorer. Cam Thomas, somebody like that. Let all the other defenders play defense, and that one guy scores the basketball kind of thing. Detroit should kind of be like one of those teams that could be like a third team that can absorb. They've got $14 million that they could just absorb contracts with. So mixing that with like a Tim Hardaway Jr. contract could potentially lead to going and getting a Brandon Ingram or, a CJ McCollum that could help them with spreading the floor even more. Also taking a little bit of pressure off of somebody like Cade Cunningham, especially with Jaden Ivey's injury. That's a bit of a bummer, but I think that they're in a different category than like the Hawks, for example, because you're like, with the Hawks, Jalen Johnson was like your solidified number 2 guy. Jaden Ivey, he was technically your number 2, but they're still balling without him too. So it's okay. So you kind of push forward and you say, this kind of gives you an opportunity of like, hey, what can we do without Jaden Ivey? And then maybe we can look to move him in the future. Miami, of course, they should be looking to make a deal. They should look to get rid of Jimmy Butler. Should not be on this roster past Thursday, which hopefully he's moved. Milwaukee, if you can make a move, I guess do it, but there's so much money already on the books. If you can move Chris Middleton, cool, go do it. You got to get younger somehow. You got to get a little better also, because you're competing against 4 teams above you: the Pacers, the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavs. Speaking of the Pacers, I don't know why they want to move Miles Turner so bad. I think that he should be an extremely valuable piece you kind of keep unless you get a ransom for him. If you get a big haul, sure, get rid of him. But which in today's market, maybe a center will get you a bigger haul than what it would in a few years back. But I think that you look to possibly like flip some of your talent, as in like take some of the guys, the Aaron Nesmiths on the roster, Isaiah Jackson, etc., and you kind of consolidate those, and then you go trade 2-for-1s where you're giving up those 2 younger pieces, and then you go get a better player back, 1 better player for 2 younger solid players, if that makes sense. The Knicks here, I think that they stay put, honestly. I think that their issue is going to be just tiresome. It's like I watch this team and they make me tired watching them play, because they longevity wise, they just 48 minutes, 48 minutes, 48 minutes, 48 minutes. Like, that's insane. Every player is playing 48 minutes. Tom Thibodeau is running his players into the dirt, where they're just physically and mentally exhausted by the time the playoffs come around. And then they're battling injuries that they don't have time to recover from, right? Like, Thibodeau needs to learn that he needs to chill. If you're up 20, when you were up 20 against the freaking Sixers in the playoffs, that's when Derrick Rose got injured. We don't want that happening to a Brunson, a Mikal Bridges, where that literally ruins your season after that. If you're up, like right now, you're up 5 games on the 4 seed Pacers. Take a break. Like, I understand you're only 2 games back from the 2 seed Celtics, but I think it's more important to get all your players playing and healthy versus solidifying that 2 seed, if that makes sense. I think that that's what I would rather do. But of course, that's Tibbs' coaching style. It's just something he's always done. And it's a reason also why they've been super successful in the past with both the Bulls, the Wolves, and now the Knicks, is he runs a system of grit and grind players that play, and they play a lot, and they're able to just push. So, I mean, their conditioning is phenomenal, of course, but the Celtics here probably won't make a move. I mean, maybe like Jaden Springer gets traded for something small, but nothing crazy. They're not going to move Kristaps. They're not going to move Tatum, Brown, Derek White, etc. You want a championship with this roster, you run it back the same exact way. Last but not least, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they could use a wing, get in to the Cam Johnson sweepstakes if you can. Go get in to, go talk to one of these rosters that has an available wing. The Lakers with Rui Hachimura. He is he can defend positions 2 through 5 is what I would say. So go get somebody like him, slide him in at the 3. He's a little bit oversized for that 3 position. He might be too slow to play the 3, but the spacing there might be questionable, but they're making it work now. So what I will say is there's a lot of possible activity happening because this domino just fell with Luka. By Thursday, we might be seeing a ton of trades spill in because everyone wants to just get better now, because KD and D-Book are going to the front office after seeing that trade and being like, all right, they made a deal for a superstar. What are you going to do so that we can get better and compete against them? Oklahoma City might freak out a little bit and be like, shoot, we need to get better too. We got to figure out how to contain LeBron and Luka, so without further ado, guys, it has been another Heart Over Height episode. So if you do enjoy this content, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on what you guys think about this overall deal. Who won, who lost, where do you see the Mavs going, where do you see the Lakers going, and who else is going to make a trade? So again, it's been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.